Good morning, Michigan. Going to be a few months now until we hear the voice of the turtle throughout the land. Always great to hear the voice of Ernie Harwell, and that's, of course, the famous poem that he would always read at the start of his first broadcast of the year during spring training. Well, we're not moving towards the season of the turtle. We're moving right into the season of winter. As a matter of fact, it was blustery and balmy this morning as I departed to head for the program this morning. It was around 60 degrees. They're telling us by mid-afternoon we're going to be somewhere in the 30s, and that big breeze that was blowing is bringing in a bit of a cold wind. It's going to be a chilly Thanksgiving. Snow flurries in the forecast, and Amanda Wall, our producer, upset about this because she's got big plans. First for Black Friday, likes to be at the stores at 2 a.m.
Yeah, well, yeah, I get up at 2. I'm there probably by 3.
Okay, there you go.
Line.
Yes, there we go. And I think I've heard of stores now, some are opening at 4 a.m., as a matter of fact.
Most stores do open at 4, and usually you.
Now, I thought it was like 5, but.
And there's malls, and I hate to share this secret because it's kind of my secret, but you can usually get in the doors even though the stores themselves aren't open. So people tend to wait outside in the long line. But if you walk inside the mall and wait outside the store that you want, you can generally get through the door a lot quicker.
Okay, and there are also stores opening on Thanksgiving this year, which at Walmart, for example, which I just think is flat out wrong.
They've been doing Black Friday deals all week long.
Yeah.
I mean, I went to the mall, and J.C. Penney's was having deals that you would normally only be able to get on Black Friday. And they're doing this right now because of the way the economy is. They know that people will actually shop more and more often if they do, the deal of the day. And a lot of things are, kind of sneaking out on the internet right now. Pre-Black Friday sales.
Yeah,
and
what's it called on Cyber Monday, right?
Yes.
Would follow all of that. But to have your employees come to work on Thanksgiving, to me, it's just wrong. It's bad enough that these employees have to show up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, the day after Thanksgiving. You would think that at least they'd be able to spend some time with their family. And that's what Thanksgiving is supposed to be all about. So to me, to have, I personally would not shop at a store that's open on Thanksgiving.
But I think a lot of people don't. I mean, not everybody celebrates Thanksgiving. There's people
who doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving. It's not like it's a religious holiday.
But there's people that are here from other countries that don't recognize the fact that it's
well, they ought to get with the program.
We were talking to Nikki, and Nikki Hill, our world correspondent, will be in here, and she said England doesn't celebrate Thanksgiving.
Well, she's here now. She has the opportunity.
She might.
This is a plus
now that she's here.
Yeah.
But, I went to school when I went to MSU. There was a girl that was from Canada, and
their Thanksgiving is a month earlier. Yeah.
Right, so she went and celebrated that, and then she just stayed in the dorm for our Thanksgiving because she said, I'm not going to go all the way back home for.
Yeah. We probably should get those synced up, as a matter of fact. Canada's Thanksgiving it's 3 weeks or a month before American Thanksgiving. And I think the Canadian Thanksgiving is completely contrived anyways. At least our Thanksgiving is based on something, right? The Indians and the settlers getting together, the first Thanksgiving, sharing a meal. Of course, then we kill them. But, this is history.
Well, now we get a day off and we get to eat a lot of food.
Yeah.
And tell everybody what we're thankful for.
There we go. Gary Austin is in the newsroom. Let's check in with Gary right now. Gary, yesterday, the anniversary of the assassination of President Kennedy, and I was listening to a radio host, Tom Hartman, who actually is from here in Lansing. And it turns out he and I actually worked at the same radio station back in the late 1970s, the station where I began my broadcast career, the country station Whittle, over there across the dial. But at any rate, he had a guest on his program yesterday, a big Kennedy assassination conspiracy guy, and it was driving me nuts. Their point was that the mafia had JFK killed, and it just seems to me that given everything we now know about this case, being able to apply modern forensics to the assassination, you can trace back the bullets coming from the Texas School Book Depository. I used to think that there was a conspiracy involved to kill President Kennedy, but it just seems to me, having read Vincent Bugliosi's book Reclaiming History and Gerald Posner's book about the Kennedy assassination, 50 years, virtually 50 years has gone by. Nobody has come forward with seems to me, a shred of evidence to indicate that it was anything other than Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone.
Well, Rich, these conspiracy theories, they make for good launching pads for movies and books and that sort of thing. We know that. But yeah, it's hard to argue. The Warren Commission report was very thorough when it came out at the time, in the mid 1960s when it was finalized. But through it all, I think as time goes on, there will always be these theories, and some will believe them, and some won't. But either way, Rich, you can talk all day long about how frivolous these theories are, but I tell you what, tomorrow someone's going to come up with a new one.
Well, I mean, you've heard people have come up with theories like there was a gunman in the sewer as the car went by and he fired through a sewer grate, or my favorite that the Secret Service agent in the front seat of the limousine turned around and shot John F. Kennedy.
I never heard that one.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
new.
there's that one's out there as well. But when I thought Bugliosi's book was about 1,200 pages long. Vincent Bugliosi, he was the guy that prosecuted Charlie Manson. He's a pretty solid lawyer, and his point is that there is no physical evidence of any other shots being fired in Dealey Plaza that day other than the ones that were fired from the rifle which belonged to Lee Harvey Oswald, and his prints were on that rifle, and he would have been convicted of the crime had he, of course, not been shot by Jack Ruby 2 days later.
Yeah, it's an ongoing debate. Now, it's a debate here all these years, and here we are still talking about it, and still a lot of unsolved questions involved with this. You guys were talking earlier about the working on Thanksgiving thing. As you guys were chatting, Rich and Amanda, I couldn't help but think that there are probably a lot of folks who welcome the work, Thanksgiving or otherwise, and they're glad just to be doing something, to be earning a paycheck. And boy, we look at this new report coming out today where the state, effective 6 p.m. Saturday, is no longer going to be taking any more claims for unemployment benefits because the federal government has not okayed any additional money to the states to cover the tab. Boy, talk about a jam. So many of these folks are going to find themselves in who were out of work all of a sudden and then zero money by way of an unemployment check.
And what a time of year to have it happen,
terrible.
especially if you've got children. Your concern this year isn't just buying Christmas presents for your kids. It's paying the mortgage and putting food on the table. It's an unbelievable situation.
Yeah, it really is sad. Now this has happened a zillion times before. We have this deadlock in Congress, and then at the last minute something happens where something is done, where a stopgap plan is approved, and then voila, the money is there for those in need. Now, sometimes there's a delay built in, and it takes a few days for things to catch up, and we hear about money being paid back retroactive and all that. But, it seems like Congress is really at loggerheads over this, and I really wonder if they could really mean it this time, because, the federal government's broke. States are in desperate need, not just Michigan, but other states, too. I just wonder, Rich, if this could be one of those things where we will not see this remedied anytime soon.
Well,
we certainly hope it is, but you never know.
Well, they took that, I'm trying to remember the name of the procedure they used, but it was to curtail debate, but in exchange for curtailing debate on the issue, it needed a 2/3 majority to pass. It would have passed easily in the House with a simple majority, but it fell 17 votes short of the 2/3 majority required. And what bothered me the most was that there were 11 Democrats who voted no. 7 other Democratic members of the House didn't bother to vote. Had those 18 congressmen voted in favor of the extension, it would have passed.
Yeah, I tell you, well, with the clock ticking, I just wonder if Congress is going to move quickly. Now, we should note here, too, that Thursday and Friday, lawmakers are nowhere to be found.
Exactly.
They're gone. They're not going to be in Washington those 2 days.
Exactly.
So we'll see. They're going to be flying somewhere, a lot of these lawmakers, along with quite a few other Americans. I wonder how many will take part in this National Opt-Out Day, this TSA body scanner business that's still making
You know
news.
what,
And,
Gary?
it's supposed to happen, Rich. Tomorrow is the opt-out day from what we're told.
Well, I don't know that opt-out is a particularly good phrase. And the thing of it is, that security lines are already ridiculously long on Thanksgiving. Yeah. It's the busiest travel day of the year, and it's not going to take very many people to really bollocks up the works.
Oh, you're right. Just a handful. I mean, even just one could make a big fuss.
Sure.
And then picture this. One guy, one gal makes a big deal about it, and then the guy, 5 people back in line is cutting his flight kind of close because he's got to be somewhere and his plane's going to be taken off soon. He doesn't have enough time to be standing in line for much longer. And then he's going to get upset. He's going to get angry. And then people are going to start yelling at each other. I mean, this could be a real horrible situation. And then you got the kids, they're going to be watching all this. I mean, you can just see it. I mean, it's
absolutely.
It's a powder keg.
Yep. We'll see how it all plays out tomorrow, Gary. Thanks much.
Right, Rich.
Always nice talking to you, Gary Austin, in the newsroom as we prepare for. It's going to be a real circus tomorrow. I just have a feeling. Well, we'll see how all that plays out. Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick Shields here on MPS in the morning on this pre-Thanksgiving Tuesday. We'll take a break and be back with more in just a moment. This song sounds so festive, so holiday-like, doesn't it? Man, oh man. This is one of my favorite Christmas carols right here. Tell you what, Rich Kincaid filling in for Michael Patrick Shields on MPS in the morning on this Tuesday. I'll be here with you tomorrow. Michael Patrick will be back next week, and we're joined right now by Kyle Malin with the news editor from Mears covering the state capitol, and we got some inside baseball stuff we want to get through real fast. This battle brewing over the state Republican Party chairmanship. Nobody really cares about this stuff. I mean, seriously, they care about Rick Snyder being the governor, but in terms of who the party chair is, it seems to me, there's a controversy brewing. Explain to us what it's all about, but Snyder's going to get his guy, isn't he?
Well, I think so. He will get his guy. The situation is right now that yesterday, Bobby Shostak, who is the current finance chair at the Michigan Republican Party, announced that he would be running to replace Ron Weiser, who only wants to serve one term and then get out. He's getting in, and then Ron Weiser, Rick Snyder, the incoming governor, is backing Bobby Shostak. And so it looks as if Bobby Shostak is going to be the next party chair. The wheels are pretty much greased. The grassroots are starting to line up behind him. We've got some Tea Party folks who are okay with him. By and large, it looks like the rest of the field is dropping out. Mike Bishop has been talked about as replacing Ron Weiser. He is now hedging his bets and really looking to be really out of the race. Scott Greenlee was talked about getting into the race. He is no longer going to be in it. And Terry Lynn Lamb, the Secretary of State, was considering the race, and doesn't look like she's going to get in either anymore.
Governor-elect Snyder is going to give his inaugural address outside January 1st, correct?
Yeah, but you know what? Isn't that the way that it's supposed to be?
I think so.
I think that's the way it's supposed to be. I know folks are going to freeze out there. I mean,
maybe, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, you never know. You could theoretically have a day where it's in the upper 30s or low 40s in January, but chances are, you're talking about the 20s or the teens.
Well, you know what? There's a good thing for that. And the good thing is that everybody's going to keep their speeches just a little shorter, I think.
Really?
Because they got to stand out there, too, and freeze. I mean, who wants to stand out there and freeze when you're out there giving the speech, right? And everybody who's going to be out there listening doesn't want them to continue on and go on and on and on and on.
Sure.
So,
what sort of crowd does that typically draw to the state capitol? I mean, after all, it is January 1st.
Right.
So half the population's hung over.
And the other half is watching football.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's probably a lot of overlap, too.
Yeah. Right. So I've always wondered why they go ahead and have this on January 1st, when it seems to me if you just waited a day or two, you could actually have turn it into some sort of big deal.
Boy, that's a decent idea. But that's just how the Constitution's written. You're
right.
sworn in on
Yes.
January 1.
I know. Somebody should change that.
Yeah. Unless we could have like a fill-in, or you could just have a couple extendo days,
Something like that.
Yeah, you could go to January 2, January 3.
Yeah. Now, here's the story that I found interesting this morning. The state to curb road projects as gas tax revenue shrinks. This is from the Detroit News, and it says the lead sentence says it all. Michigan could see half of its road construction budget disappear by 2012. Now, that's a big story. That affects everybody.
That's been going on for at least a couple years now. I'm trying to remember when we first wrote about that story at MERS. That's just been going on for on and on. And here's the problem. There's a huge gap between the money that we collect from the gas tax and what we need to collect from the gas tax to get money from the federal government. See, the federal government doesn't like us when we collect a small amount of money from our gas tax because they feel like we're chintz at them somehow, right? They feel like, well, if we're going to give you all this money to repair your roads, you at the very least got to collect X. And the problem is that with our economy going down, people driving less, us driving more fuel-efficient cars, we're not paying as much gas tax as we used to. So there becomes this gap. Now, there was actually a gap this year of about $80 million that if we didn't collect, we would have lost, I can't remember the number now, $500 million in road project money. I'm sure that Detroit News article talks about that. And at the last minute, we basically just said, we'll find it somewhere. We're going to write some short-term notes. It's really pretty silly. There is no long-term fix, and that's really one of the big criticisms of the Capitol there down the street, that as these folks go into allegedly a week of lame duck and then end session for the year, we never really fix this problem. There's this huge gap. How are we supposed to be funding our roads when we can't even collect the money from the federal government?
What is that? What's it going to look like, though, with half the money to repair the roads come 2012 compared to what we're spending right now?
Now, the State Transportation Commission met last week and actually talked about that very fact. They put out their 5-year plan. And I'm trying to remember exactly the details on this, but at least half of the projects that they had on the books that to be done were gone, just instantly gone.
Wow.
Dropped out. We can't do them anymore. Now, there are a few projects that you can still do on there, but consider this. Back in 2007, Gloria Jeff, who was the Michigan Department of Transportation director, said that we are at 90%, which means that of our state roads, and those are our state-monitored roads, are like Saginaw is a state road, Martin Luther King up until you hit Ottawa there is a state road. Of those state roads, 90% of them are in good condition. Now, if we don't do anything about our roads and we continue the current formula, by 2014, only 50% will be. That's how quickly we drop, because we just can't maintain, because we just don't have the funding anymore.
And we're a state where roads deteriorate more rapidly than would be the case in a southern state, simply because of the climate, the thaw and freeze cycle that we have every year.
And the federal government doesn't care about that.
Yeah.
That is not what they consider. They consider those states that are kind of in the middle, I suppose, or unless Alaska, where Senator Stevens had his state taken care of for a long number of years. But anyway, they consider those states that people drive through. The Ohios, the Missouris, where the interstates get a lot of work because folks are going from one coast, theoretically, to the other coast. Nobody travels through Michigan much unless you're kind of going through Canada. Maybe you can take Canada through Buffalo and you go through 94. So they don't necessarily see this. We get less money back from the federal government than these other states. We only get in the 90-cent range compared to $1. See, what happens is when we collect our gas tax, we actually send it to Washington. And then they turn around and send it back to us, right? Which is kind of silly, right? But anyway, so some of our gas money actually goes somewhere else. That formula has never really been fixed well. And so we get kind of shorted on money right off the bat. But we're just not collecting what we used to. And that's going to be big problems for us down the road here.
Well, there's no way they're going to raise the gas tax. I think that's a safe assumption to make.
Yeah, they really haven't. Correct. And you know what the funny thing is, though? That the Michigan Chamber of Commerce has long supported an increase of the gas tax.
No way.
And the last person to raise the gas tax was John Engler.
Wow.
And you know what?
Those are two surprising things, because the Chamber of Commerce raising taxes, that doesn't sound like a sentence that is well constructed, and and you wouldn't think of John Engler actually as the last. But what that does say, I mean, how long has it been since Engler was governor? We're pushing 20 years on that, aren't we?
It seems like it, doesn't it? But, you know, the other thing, though, is that the last time they did a gas tax increase was during a lame duck session, like this one, too, very quickly, and it was done to increase economic development. You see, from the Chamber's perspective, if our roads just crumble, business isn't going to want to come here.
Sure.
I mean, it's going to be a detriment to business coming here. And then for the businesses that are already here, it's a big transportation liability if our roads are crumbling and they're not being repaired as well as they could be. Their members get upset, and so they want the roads repaired. That is one tax that they will, if they see things falling off, that's one tax that they will inevitably support.
Is there any proposal being floated about to raise the gas tax, and if so, by how much?
There is a proposal out there. It's being supported by Pam Burns, a Democrat out of Washtenaw County, and Dick Ball, who is a state representative nearby here in Lansing, up in Bennington Township over there by Langsburg. Anyway, they do have a proposal. It's kind of a phase-in. I want to say it's 3 or 4 cents 1 year and then another 3 or 4 cents next year, something like that. It's it's a few pennies. And, if they instituted it this lame duck and nobody covered, let's just say nobody covered it, okay, which is impossible, but let's just say they do. How many people would actually notice if you really think about it? I mean, the price of gas fluctuates so wildly anyway.
Right.
3 cents on the gas, somebody, those gas companies, they're fleecing us. Nobody's really going to put it together. But, so the price can fluctuate by 10 cents, let's say, on a given week. We don't even know why. We don't really have a good grasp. But if the state were to raise the gas tax by 3 cents, all hell would break loose.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
All hell would break loose. You're raising our taxes, this, that, and the other thing, even though it would go to save a funding system that would protect us from losing millions and hundreds of millions of dollars for our roads. It's really hilarious.
It's hard to get beyond the very simple rhetoric. Tax increase bad, and but then again, this is something that if the roads go bad, everybody notices it. And I notice it when I drive. When you cross a state line, for example, I notice all of a sudden when you get into Ohio, you get on the turnpike. Of course, you have to pay to use the turnpike. That road's in much better shape. When you go over into Canada, the 401 is in much better shape than you find on I-96, I-94, our freeways, basically.
Now is the time to do it, too. Look, I mean, the Democrats are relinquishing control of the state house. You've got 29 state senators who are out the door anyway. If they would put something through for those senators who are basically retiring, there are no political implications. The governor would sign it. And it would save Rick Snyder from a major headache, if you think about it. So if they were to pass, let's say, a Pam Burns bill or a Dick Ball bill, now I think would really be the time to do it. I think they could get the votes in both chambers if they just put it up, especially since, like I said, the chamber's been supporting it for years and years and years.
Yeah, well, they have been, but Republicans in the state Senate, one suspects, would ultimately vote it down because, they've voted down every tax increase ever. What happened with the schools here in the last couple of years? We had to cut $20 million out of the school district where my daughter goes to school, and we just couldn't get any more money out of the state. And that's a whole other issue and a whole other ball of crazy that we'll need to talk about some other time.
That sounds fine. But you know what? All they really need, if you think about it, all they need are 4 Republican senators. The rest of the Democratic caucus, I think, would take care of the rest. There's 16 Democrats in there now. Let's just say you get 4 Republicans. I know they can find, if they can find those votes for an income tax increase in 2007, I'm sure they can find one from the road tax.
Kyle, nice chatting with you. Thanks for coming in.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
You betcha. Kyle Malin of MERS, covering the state capitol and doing a heck of a job of it. We're going to take a break. We'll be back with more of MPS in the morning in just a moment. All right, back we are here on a pre-Thanksgiving Tuesday. Rich Kincaid filling in for Michael Patrick, who will be back with you on Monday. A lot going on between now and then, of course. Black Friday coming up on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, of course. Stores opening, some of them at 4 o'clock in the morning. Amanda says some of them are opening even earlier than that. And I bought something at Walmart online a couple of weeks ago, and because of that, I get probably 6 emails a day now from Walmart, and now they're sending me one here that says their big event begins at 5 a.m. On Friday, which I think is fairly common, as a matter of fact, coming up on Friday. Meanwhile, while we celebrate the holidays, criminals are also celebrating. Which we don't like to hear about, and we're joined right now by a guest who's going to talk to us about what we can do to not get ripped off during the holiday season. Robert Boxberger of FinSphere. He is the president, and our topic here is how to protect yourself. Shoppers, according to Robert, are 300% more likely to suffer credit card fraud during the holidays than at any time of the year. Robert just made me a little concerned there that I spent some money online with that purchase from Walmart recently. 300% more likely. What accounts for that?
We in the industry dub the next month and a half as fraud season. it really is the perfect storm for criminals. Customers spend more money during the shopping season than they do any other time throughout the year. Number two, merchants simply aren't as diligent as they normally are, because instead of having 2 people in line, you can have 20 people in line, so they're not checking IDs. And thirdly, because of the high transaction volume, customers are less likely to remember the purchases they made sometimes 45 days ago. So all 3 of those components really lead into the fraud season, where in the United States alone, beginning Black Friday, we lose to fraudsters over $100,000 per minute.
How are they getting away with it?
It goes as very low tech as people doing something we call dumpster diving, which is simply going in the trash and finding your statements, finding your bills, and finding any bit of information that they could use to really become you. It goes as high tech as people placing devices on ATM machines that look exactly like normal card readers. You put your card in there, you pull it out, the data is then transmitted to a laptop that is parked in a truck across the street, where all of that data is being downloaded. It's very easy to commit credit card and debit card fraud, because it's difficult for police to really hunt down any criminal because of the sheer volume of fraud that is happening.
Well, obviously, you can shred your private documents, your credit card statements, things of that nature. That's an easy fix. The other stuff, though, it sounds to me as though you're essentially at the mercy of the fraudster.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's exactly correct. The sad reality is that we can't stop the bad guys from doing bad things. That's just the environment that we're in. What you can do, and this is what every consumer group will advocate, everybody is in complete agreement on this, you need to be diligent over your money. You need to review your statements daily, weekly, during this holiday season, and really account for every single transaction that you make, because that's what the fraudsters are counting on. They're counting on, during this season, you're going to miss a $50 transaction, you're going to miss a $100 transaction, and if you miss that, then they're going to continue to utilize your money, and maybe you'll miss a $150 transaction. That's the environment that these folks are preying on.
And that's the big defense that you have. It's the technology. It's a double-edged sword, because, again, you can go and check your account activity each and every day, and that sounds to me like the best way to just nip it in the bud.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. Be diligent. Treat the plastic exactly like you would treat your money. Make sure that when you get the money back in your wallet, you always make sure you get the correct change. You always make sure that you put it in there in a safe place. The same needs to be true for your credit cards. Be diligent over what purchase you're making. It really gets difficult for families, because
Sure.
you may have a husband and wife that have 2 cards, and one person is paying the bills, and you're going through and you see it.
Right, so stay on top of it. Robert, thanks very much for the advice. We appreciate it this morning.
Thank you.
All right, it's a great time of year, but it's the time of year you need to be wary. Robert Boxberger of FinSphere Incorporated on holiday fraud. We'll take a break, be back with more. I hear the cash register. Sounds like the Who's coming up. Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick. We'll continue in just a moment. And indeed, if you step outside onto the sidewalk this morning and you look towards that Capitol Dome, you see the beautiful state Christmas tree on the Capitol steps. We are indeed right across the street from Cooley Law Stadium, home of the Lansing Lugnuts. I'm Rich Kincaid, filling in for Michael Patrick, and Amanda K. Wall, nice enough, thoughtful enough to provide a brief window here so I can talk about sports, which is typically a how I spend my radio time. I'm a sportscaster by trade, so we get thrown in here. We talk about politics. We talk about everything on Michael Patrick's program. But we're back in my comfort zone for just a moment or two. Well, let's get updated on what's been going on overnight in sports. Michigan State holding off Chaminade 82-74 last night in the opening round of the 2010 Maui Invitational. Chaminade known for pulling those early round upsets in the tournament that they host, but Michigan State did not fall victim to the, hey, we're in Hawaii, and we forgot about playing basketball, part of that scenario, as they win 82-74. Kalen Lucas had 28, Corey Lucius 13, Draymond Green 10 points and 9 boards. MSU will take on Connecticut in the semifinals today. The Pistons back in action tonight on the road against Dallas. Pistons are 5-8 on the season. They've actually improved after their 0-4 start. Red Wings start a 2-game road trip tomorrow night on the road in Atlanta. They finished up a 6-game homestand on Sunday with a come-from-behind overtime victory over Calgary. And Detroit on that 6-game stand went 5-0-1. They got points in each and every game. Lions play their 71st Thanksgiving Day game on Thursday against the New England Patriots. They are heavy underdogs in that one as they come in with a record of 2-8. San Diego, the Chargers, in Monday Night Football spotted the Broncos a touchdown, then roared back with 35 unanswered, and San Diego defeated Denver 35-14 last night. The Vikings, also in the NFL, fired head coach Brad Childress yesterday. Childress, all he did was take the Vikings to the NFC Championship game twice, including last year, and this year with the Vikings 3-7. Childress is out. He has been replaced, at least on an interim basis, by defensive coordinator Leslie Frazier, who was on the Super Bowl champion Chicago Bears team back in the 1980s. Childress finishes up his Minnesota career 39 up and 35 down in 4+ seasons. Titans quarterback Vince Young on injured reserve. He's done for the year. He ripped a tendon in his throwing thumb. And in baseball, Joey Votto, the runaway winner for the National League Most Valuable Player. Votto placed first on 31 of 32 ballots, and he lapped the field, finishing 164 points ahead of second-place finisher Albert Pujols. So that gets us caught up with respect to some of the sports. Let's turn our attention back to what's going on with Michigan State football. Mark D'Antonio will hold his weekly presser today, and a lot to talk about with Michigan State, Ohio State, and Wisconsin in a 3-way tie for the Big Ten lead. Now, according to the official Big Ten release, here's how things work out. If it winds up that we have a 3-way tie for first place after the games this weekend, and those games again are Michigan State at Penn State at noon, Michigan at Ohio State at noon, Wisconsin home to Northwestern at 3:30. Well, since Michigan State and Ohio State did not play one another, 3 teams finishing with an identical record, it would be the highest-ranked team in the final BCS standings, which would be the Big Ten's automatic qualifier for a BCS Bowl. If Michigan and Ohio State wind up tied for first, again, since those two teams did not play and would wind up with identical conference records, the highest-ranked team among the two in the final BCS standings would go to the BCS Bowl. And we're talking about the Rose Bowl here because the Big Ten champion this year will not be playing in the championship game. Nobody's going to finish from the Big Ten high enough in the BCS standings to be either 1 or 2 and to play in the title game. If Michigan State and Wisconsin tie for first place, that is to say if they both win and Ohio State loses, since the Spartans defeated Bucky Badger at Spartan Stadium on October 2nd, Michigan State would be the Big Ten's BCS automatic qualifier. If Ohio State and Wisconsin finish in a tie for first place, since the Badgers defeated the Buckeyes on October 16th, Wisconsin would be the Big Ten's BCS automatic qualifier. So there you have it, all the possible scenarios as we have a 3-way tie for first place in the Big Ten. By the way, with their victory on Saturday over Purdue. Michigan State in a game in which they trailed 28-13 in the fourth quarter before coming back for a 35-31 win. Michigan State hitting the 10-victory plateau for the first time since 1999. And I'm going to have to check on this, but I don't believe a Michigan State team has had an 11-win season. But we'll check on that and get back to you on it. Okay, so that gets us caught up on sports. Congressman Pete Hoekstra will be joining us along with Gary Austin at the top of the hour. We look forward to that discussion. We'll get the latest on this situation where North Korea and South Korea are shooting at one another. That's coming up as we continue on MPS in the Morning. Having a good time doing it. Let's get the important stuff first. I said before the break I wasn't sure if Michigan State had had an 11-win season in their illustrious football history, so we looked it up, and in fact they have not. 10 wins is their tops, which they achieved in 1965 and again in 1999 and again here in 2010. So MSU goes not just for a share of the Big Ten title on Saturday at Penn State, they go team history as well as they bid to become the first Spartan team ever to win 11 games. And it turns out the senior class, it was Senior Day Saturday at Spartan Stadium, 17 seniors playing in their final home game for Michigan State. This year's senior class, with the victory over Purdue, has now won more games than any class in Michigan State history. So kudos to those guys. That was the 32nd victory for the class of 2010, the Michigan State University football class of 2010. I think we're looking at Henry's ridiculous interception on the TV side right now. Indeed, we are. Do you see a Boilermaker in the picture? That's. I'm going to go to Coach D'Antonio's presser this morning at 11:30 at Spartan Stadium. I'm going to ask him specifically about that play. It came with State trailing 28-13 in the fourth quarter. And there was just no reason at all for Purdue to throw as grotesque an interception as that was. And I just want his professional opinion on what happened on that particular play. It was just a ball that was rainbowed up there, and C.L. Rucker was waiting for it. And he was the only player, again, as we saw the video on the TV side there, the only player in the camera view, and I was watching it through the binoculars, and that gives me a good field of vision, maybe a 15, 20-yard circumference around the player. I just couldn't see any Purdue player. It looked like a punt. I thought he was going to fair catch the ball. And what was Henry thinking, the Purdue quarterback? There was some mistake somewhere, and it was that play, which I believe put Michigan State back into that football game. They were moribund at that point, trailing by 15 in the fourth quarter, got that huge turnover, and then later, subsequently, would block the punt and come from behind to beat Purdue and keep their hopes of a Big Ten title alive. And, of course, it all depends on their beating Penn State in Happy Valley come this Saturday. It's going to be Senior Day in Penn State, and Penn State is not an easy place for Michigan State to play football. We're vamping just a little bit here, Amanda, as we wait to be joined by Congressman Pete Hoekstra.
It looks like he'll be joining us in the next segment, 7:20.
Oh, well, very well then. Oh, okay. So this leaves me just a little, maybe is Gary Austin standing by? Maybe we just talk about some of the news with Gary. Yeah, because the big story this morning, and in a way, I'm trying to, how do I phrase this properly? I don't want to say it's nice that we have an important story, but it's significant at any rate that there is actual news going on in the world this morning. It's not just some celebrity gossip item that has, if we're not, for example, talking about Brillo Palin on Dancing with the Stars. Bristol, sorry. Dancing on the Stars, the 2-hour finale coming up tonight. They've received death threats, by the way. Here I'm saying I'm not going to talk about it. Now we're talking about it. But both Bristol and her dance partner have received death threats.
Mark Ballas, they have.
Yeah.
And actually, last night, Tom Bergeron, the host, made did a nod to the news story where the man shot his television when Bristol went through. Did you hear about this last week?
Yeah, I think vaguely, yes.
They gave the results show, and he actually shot his television set because Bristol Palin moved on. And that's a serious reality TV fan.
I remember a case of a Denver Bronco football fan in the throes taking a shotgun to his TV after a Broncos loss, but, at least it's something important.
They
So, Rich,
said security last night at Dancing with the Stars was so tight that the president himself would have had to have a lot of ID and things to even get in. So it cost them. I was reading. I can't even remember the number, but it was some ridiculous amount of money to just increase the security for last night's and tonight's performance.
The whole country's going crazy. Gary Austin, Gary, the situation though where you have shots being exchanged this morning between North and South Korea, that's an important news story.
Yeah, it sure is. A small island off the South, Rich, and artillery shells lobbed by the North into the South. Now, we're condemning what happened. But one of the questions that I'd like to pose to Congressman Hoekstra when he joins us later this hour is, aside from just condemning, and we've been doing this for years, what can the United States really do? Sanctions have not worked. Clearly, they ignore them. They get around them. They make other plans. They do whatever it takes to make it clear to the UN, to the United States, to anybody who intervenes, that sanctions simply are not effective.
Well, I don't know, Gary. The sanctions seem to be working under the Clinton administration back in the 1990s. They were towing the line pretty good, as a matter of fact. They had suspended their nuclear program. They had allowed inspectors in. So I don't know that I agree with your statement that sanctions don't work. I think they have to be the right kind of sanctions.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think there was some concern, too, that maybe the inspectors who went in weren't finding everything that was actually going on. Now, the other side was saying that. But sanctions, how effective are they? It is a good point. I think we'll never really know. We've got to do something. But short of sanctions, beyond
that's the thing. Well, exactly. What are your options? You want to start another shooting war? I mean... Yeah. Is there any other option other than going to war with them again?
Well, that's true. But if sanctions don't work, what is the other option?
Right.
That's it. I mean, it's a tough. And I tell you what, Rich, these political lawmakers, the president, those who have to make these snap decisions in the world the way it is today, I tell you what, that's a tough job, because the decisions they make will impact so many, in some cases immediately, especially if this does trigger a war. And probably there are hot spots all over the world at any given time. If you name the decade, we can find a number of hot spots. I mean, there's a war. There are dozens of wars going on continuously worldwide, every single minute. It's been the case, the way it always is. But something like this that has such a significant nuclear capacity as this whole tension situation between the North and South, it's been going on for so long. They've tried to negotiate. It hasn't worked. We've tried to intervene. It hasn't worked. The UN has tried everything. It hasn't worked. You just wonder if it's going to hit a breaking point, Rich, if something's going to happen, a little thing, like maybe today. We're seeing this South Korean island being shelled by the North. Those are the allegations coming from the South this morning. It's happening right now.
And there have been fatalities.
Yes, at least one. At least one South Korean Marine is dead, and a number of others are injured, presumably some severe. So, and the shooting's not over yet.
Exactly.
So what can we do? I mean, can we send advisors? Can we? We can, like you say, we can turn up the diplomatic heat. I mean, we've been doing that. I mean, like you say, since the Clinton administration. But whether or not all of that, all combined, is going to do what it takes to prevent the potential for a real nuclear catastrophe in that part of the continent, we'll have to wait and see. Another story that's really making news, this whole business about 61-year-old Thomas Sawyer, and he's the Michigan man who had that terrible medical condition patted down by the TSA at Metro the other day, wearing a urostomy bag under his clothes. It leaked. The TSA, the head of the TSA, is saying that his organization and those involved, they're all apologizing. And Sawyer says he's not mad. He says, I'm not mad about this. He only wants changes made in how screeners go about their jobs when dealing with those who have conditions like his. Now, that's very diplomatic.
It really is.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks would say, hello, Mr. Attorney.
File a
lawsuit.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know what's going to happen.
Although I don't know that you really have a legal leg to stand on in that case.
You don't?
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't? Explain why you don't think he has a legal leg to stand on.
Well, because everybody has to go through the screening procedure. It's it's a federal law.
It is, but I mean, the lawsuit could come about by him saying, I was treated unfairly because of my medical condition. Look, the embarrassment, the pain and suffering that I'm facing right now because of what the TSA did. Boy, Rich, I don't know.
Well,
for a lot of folks, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen.
Well, I'll tell you what, it would come between a jury of 12 of your peers, and the peers might see it your way.
You betcha. A case like that, I would wager anything, Rich, that if you put that in front of a jury, here's a poor guy, terrible medical condition, facing a... Plus, I mean, talk about the TSA is, well, these guys, in defense of these folks, they have a tough job. First of all, they're told by the government what they have to do. If they don't, imagine if someone goes through and they have a bomb in their underwear and they're patted down, the TSA agent misses the bomb in the underwear and the plane blows up. The TSA is in big time trouble. So these agents, they have to do a thorough job. Anything short of thorough, they could find them. I mean, lives could be lost. I was running audio this morning on a newscast, a program that runs on our network. We had, the lineup from the White House, Secretary of State Clinton. We had Homeland Security Chief Napolitano, even White House spokesman Robert Gibbs, all saying, we don't like it. There's a chance there are going to be some people who are going to be upset. But in this day and age, with terrorists trying everything in the book to try to trick us, to try to blow things up, we are, in this day and age, they're saying, we are left with no choice. So,
all right.
Sadly, Rich, sadly.
Well, Congressman Hoekstra said he was going to have the pat down on his next trip back to the district. We'll find out next segment if indeed that has happened, and we'll get his thoughts on that. Get your thoughts on it as well at 888 900-9966. Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick as we continue MPS in the morning. And welcome back to MPS in the morning. Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick this morning. We are going to be joined right now by Congressman Peter Hoekstra from the Republican from West Michigan. Peter, when I lived in Grand Rapids, I think you actually were my congressman. I think I lived in your district when I lived at 44th and Kalamazoo Street over there. Your term is coming to an end as you did not seek re-election this year. We wanted to talk to you this morning first off about the big pat-down issue. I read where you said on your next trip back to the district you were going to undergo the pat-down procedure so that you could address it with the constituents. Have you, in fact, had the pat-down, and if so, what was it like?
I didn't go through the pat-down. I actually was in a different line last night when I came through Washington Reagan Airport, so I've not gone through the pat-down. I'm sure that I'll get it in the next couple of trips. I just hope that, as tomorrow, I know there's all this controversy going around. It's a healthy controversy, but I hope people don't go through this slowdown today and tomorrow as we enter the Thanksgiving holiday period. The only people that are going to be hurt are the people in line behind you.
Peter, go ahead. I'm sorry. Peter Hoekstra, the congressman from Holland, from West Michigan, is on the line with us right now. We're going to bring in Gary Austin as well. And, Congressman, you're on the House Intelligence Committee. Your thoughts on the breaking story this morning, artillery shells being exchanged between North and South Korea. Just the sound of that sentence sounds scary.
Well, I'm not surprised by this at all. I mean, there's tensions are high on the peninsula. They have been. They continue to be high. Over the weekend, there were revelations again that North Korea has now may have up to 2,000 centrifuges, very modern centrifuges, which would allow them to enrich uranium at a pace that is much greater than what our intelligence estimates expected them to be able to do. It looks like they're developing a light water nuclear reactor. All kinds of things going on over there, and North Korea has a habit of raising tensions, and then they ask for something. They either ask for oil, they ask for food, they ask for cash, and these types of things. The U.S., South Korea, the Japanese, the Chinese, we are then compliant. We give them what they want, expecting that they will change their behavior. What we find out is they take all of our gifts. They don't change behavior. and we go through the same cycle again. North Korea is just a huge problem.
What makes this, Congressman, I think, different is the fact that South Korea is firing back this time.
Well, I mean, they're firing back, but again, I don't expect this to move into a full-scale type of shooting war and these types of things. Like I said, I mean, North Korea strategically has made a decision over the last couple of weeks that as they're looking at a transfer of power, that they are going to be more aggressive in their actions. I mean, allowing U.S. scientists into their facility to see exactly what their capabilities are is pretty unprecedented. I'm not sure exactly what started the artillery barrage this morning, but you know, it is a hair trigger over there, but I don't think it's a hair trigger that leads to an all-out military conflict. It's North Korea flexing its muscles, showing it's there, and ultimately I think they're going to ask for certain things, and saying, if you give us these things, we will stop and we will behave. They'll get it, and then they will not change behavior.
So, Congressman, do you think then, based on what you're saying, that the North, when you get right down to it, will never, flip the switch that fires off those nuclear weapons?
Well, I mean, never is a long time. But, at this point in time, they don't have the capability, at least we don't estimate that they have the capability to launch a missile with a nuclear warhead on top of it that would either reach the U.S., they're working aggressively on both of those things. They're working on expanding their missile capability and refining it. They are working on their nuclear weapons capability to develop a better nuclear weapon, and they are also working on miniaturizing their nuclear weapons so that they can actually put it on top of a missile. The estimate right now is they haven't put all of those things together in a package. But again, one of these days they may just surprise us and that they will have it. And they will be further along than what we are. This is one where China and Russia, it's time for them to join the international community. They are the ones that have the leverage on North Korea, and only with their cooperation and active use of sanctions against North Korea will we be able to stop their nuclear development program. And also remember that North Korea, most of us estimate, they're a proliferator. They are sharing their missile technology. They are sharing their nuclear technology. They're sharing it with other folks. They're getting cash for these programs. It wasn't all that long ago that Israel took out a nuclear reactor in Syria, probably that was going to be used to develop nuclear weapons material. And, Syria doesn't have that capability on its own. Most of us expect and think that this was a nuclear reactor, North Korea design, North Korea technology, and North Korea assistance that would have enabled Syria to move down this path.
Congressman, shifting gears, before we let you go this morning, what was your vote on the unemployment extension, and explain your vote?
I voted no on the unemployment extension last weekend. It was done on what is called suspension of the rules, which means there's no debate, or there's limited debate, but no opportunity for amendments. It was, again, adding to the deficit. Republicans have indicated that they would, that many of us would vote for this. All they have to do is find offsets in government spending somewhere else. Hopefully we'll get to it this coming week, but there's a long laundry list of items that the Democratic leadership has put off until what is called the lame duck session. We'll have to see whether they make this a priority or whether they go in a different direction.
Are you saying, Congressman, this is an effort by Democrats to make Republicans in Congress look bad?
I'm not sure if, I don't think it makes us look bad. It makes them look bad. I mean, they still have over 250 votes in the House. They still have, 59 or 58 votes in the U.S. Senate. They still control the White House. They can't get this stuff done. They've got to do on it. They say they want to do unemployment. They want to do an appropriation spending bill for the rest of the year and into next year. They got to deal with tax cuts. They want to do immigration reform. They want to do don't ask, don't tell. They got to do the Patriot Act, and that's just kind of like what they consider the must-do list. And they're going to have less than 2-3 weeks to get this all done. I think they're in for major problems. You can't rush this. You shouldn't rush this kind of legislation through the process, but they've just left this stuff on the table. I think much of it will be left for the new Congress, which comes in January 5.
All right. Thank you, Congressman. We appreciate your time this morning, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, thanks very much. So let's go quickly to the phones. John in Bronson's been hanging on. John, good morning.
Good morning.
What's up?
Was calling in concerning the pat down issue. You guys had asked for opinions on that.
And your opinion is?
My opinion on the matter is that any people that surrender their personal freedoms for the protection deserve neither and lose both.
Okay, how is this? How are you losing your freedom?
We're losing our freedom constantly. Within the last 8 years, we've lost more of our personal rights than in our entire history in America. And this is just another one of those things. Saying now that, you will be patted down and searched without probable cause of any type just because you choose to fly somewhere is a violation of my personal rights.
All right, John, we appreciate your opinion. You can share your opinion with us, 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966 to join us live here on MPS in the Morning. Joining us in the studio right now, Scott DeZerka, who is with the Michigan Association of United Ways, and you've got some programs getting started here. First off, appreciate you waiting for us here in the studio. We're getting to you a little bit later than we had planned. We appreciate your patience. Tell us what you got going on.
Not a problem. Thanks for having me this morning. We're here today to talk a little bit about a program that we run statewide called 211. That's been going on for about 5 years now. We're seeing some great growth within the system. 211 is a 3-digit call number that's similar to 911, which delivers health and human service information to about 81% of Michigan's population.
And all you have to do is pick up the phone and call 211.
3-digit call, as simple as that. Yep, we've got some great information referral services, comprehensive statewide databases that include federal, local, and state programs, as well as nonprofit and faith-based programs. It's a great one-stop shop to find out where to begin.
Who would be someone typically interested in calling 211?
It's open for the general public. We like to say it's a location where you can get and give help as well. And considering we're entering the giving season with Thanksgiving upon us, it's always an opportunity if you want to volunteer or if you want to make a charitable donation. 211's there to help you.
Okay, I see the lapel button there says 211 on it. Easy to remember. Dial 211. Find out where you can get help. Find out how you can give help. Is that the bottom line?
As simple as that. You got it, Rich.
Great idea. Great simple program. 211. So easy to remember. Scott, thanks so much.
Thanks for the time.
Scott DeZerka from the Michigan Association of United Ways. And don't forget, dial 211. And as we say, find out if you need help, that's where you go get it. If you can give help, that's where you go to give it. All right, Rich Kincaid in for Michael Patrick. We'll continue in just a moment. Pre-Thanksgiving Tuesday. Was I not on the air while I said all that, Amanda? Just now I've been on. Okay, well, we just want to greet everybody, let them know we're here on the Tuesday prior to Thanksgiving. Are people bringing you gifts this morning?
There was a fit kit dropped off down the road to the CVB that they just brought me.
Pray tell, a fit kit?
It looks like it has a pedometer, healthy and fit. The pedometers you can put on your shoes, and it tells how many steps you've taken in a day's time.
I think I may be the only person around who actually has a pedometer story. My daughter in the marching band last year wore a pedometer for every practice, every competition, every band-related activity, and it turns out the marching band and the high school marching band in the course of their season took 577,834 steps, and we went through about 20 some odd pedometers to come up with that total.
So was it just Laura, or was it everybody in the
Well,
band?
just Laura, yeah. So everybody who was in the band with her took approximately that number of steps. Because, again, she would start the pedometer as soon as they stepped out of the band hall, and so it would count walking to the practice field, the practice itself, walking back from the practice field for every practice, and then every halftime show for a football game and every marching band competition. And it was 577,834 steps in one season of marching band.
Wow, so I did 4 years of marching band. That was a lot of steps.
It's $2 million. 2.3 million. Very good for you. What
Yeah.
did you play? Clarinet?
I was
Okay.
I played-
Laura was a clarinet, but now she's a mellow. She's a mellophone. And I was so sad because the day after Thanksgiving, she's leaving me. She is heading off to try out for the Toledo, the Glassmen of Toledo. If you're familiar with marching band, and I don't blame you if you're not, because I didn't, for example, did not realize there were even marching band competitions before my daughter joined a marching band. But there's a group of private marching bands called Drum Corps International, and they stage competitions all over the country. And if she makes the Glassmen, she'll be competing in Texas, in Florida, California. They go everywhere by bus. She'll be gone for 3 whole months, which is just going to kill me. I guess I'll have to get used to it, though. She's getting to be the age where she's going to leave me, and so she's trying out this weekend, which means she'll be gone. We have to get up 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday to drive her to the tryouts, so we will be without her Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend.
So does this actually help you, like, for college, if she wants to be in a college marching band? Is it like a resume builder type
No,
thing?
I don't
or
really
is it just
think
for
so.
fun?
I think it will make her a better marcher. It'll make her a better musician. But in terms of whether or not they look at that, I think really for example, Michigan State, the only way you get into the marching band is to pass the audition. And so I don't think it's going to have any bearing on that. But it's an opportunity for her to develop her musicianship and her marchingness and all of those things that go into marching. And it's something that she just loves. She just dearly loves marching band, and it just has struck a chord with her. And for the past 3 years, I've told her when we were driving up to the Purdue game on Saturday, and when I bring her to something like the Purdue game or earlier in the year the Notre Dame game, she's not coming for the football game. She's coming to see the marching band. And so that's basically the football to her is why are they on our field? And when you go to one of these marching band competitions, for example, there might be, a reasonable show would be 12 marching bands, 12 high school marching bands are competing. And after I've watched the first 2 marching bands, I'm ready for the game to start again. It's just been ingrained in me year after year, football game after football game. The marching band performs, or in college, sometimes the marching band of each school will perform, and then the game starts up again. But in a marching band competition, there is no game. And the marching band people, honestly, they just wonder what the football team is doing out there on their field. So at any rate, and as we had mentioned earlier, Laura's school qualified for the state championships this year, which meant that they, and I think it would be a total of 40 other schools statewide, all got to march on Ford Field.
Oh,
And
that would be so much fun.
it was a great thrill for them. You get to come out of the tunnel just like, the same tunnel the Lions come out of, and then you walk into this massive stadium, and it's quite it's a different world, isn't it, than just stepping out onto a high school football field.
Well, before MSU changed the grass,
Yes.
We got to march at MSU
Oh, hey.
on the MSU field. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Even though it's not, an NFL team, it was
Right.
really neat when you were a Spartan.
Sure, but
fan,
now that
so-
they've gone to real grass, they
Yeah.
limit the use of that, but essentially to just football alone.
Right,
So
we
it's,
didn't have any more competitions
Yeah.
after that.
Yeah, and I like the fact that they play on grass, but there's a downside to it as well. All right, we will continue here on MPS in the morning. I'm Rich Kincaid. I am guest hosting. I'm delighted to be here. We're taking us right up to Thanksgiving, and Michael Patrick will be back next week. And there's our Michigan State fight song. Coach D'Antonio's presser this morning. I'll attend that and come back with all the details tomorrow. Sound like a deal? All right.
Sounds like a deal.
Let's take a break. We'll be back with more in just a moment. Unless, that is, your guess was that it would be Michigan State Democratic Party Chairman Mark Brewer, in which case you would be correct, because he is next up on this edition of the Michael Patrick Shields in the Morning program. Good morning, Mr. Brewer. And I'll tell you what, the Democratic Party, as we know, licking their wounds a little bit in the wake of what happened earlier on this month. What does the party do between now and January 1 when the Republicans take over?
Well, good morning, Rich.
Hi.
We're, getting ready to hold Governor-elect Snyder accountable. He made a lot of promises during the campaign. that he would govern on a bipartisan basis. And so we're going to be holding him accountable for that. I got to tell you, the early signs are not encouraging. One token Democrat so far appointed to his administration. And so, we're willing to cooperate and work with him without compromising our principles. We're also going to hold him accountable. He's got a big task in front of him in terms of the Michigan economy and the Michigan budget. I mean, the budget is at least $1.5 billion out of balance. That'll double if he abolishes the Michigan business tax like he promised to do during the campaign. But that's all his responsibility now, and we're going to hold him accountable for how he handles all that.
Well, he's got to abolish that tax. That was his whole platform, wasn't it?
Well, again, he made that promise, but I think, he's about to learn that governing is very different from campaigning. What are you going to do? What are you going to cut out of a budget in order to make up, billions and billions of dollars in the pending deficit, plus if he abolishes that tax? And I think the voters of the state are going to be watching very, very closely to see what his priorities actually are.
Well, we had Congressman Peter Hoekstra on the air within the past half hour, Mr. Brewer, and I asked him about his vote on the unemployment extension. He said he voted no. I wasn't particularly surprised to hear that. He said the reason he voted no was that the Democrats had not come up with, I think he probably used that phrase, Democrat Party, but the Democrats, Democratic Party, had not come up with an offset in terms of spending. What's your reaction?
Well, that's really pure Republican hypocrisy. Look, we're having this debate about extending the Bush tax cuts for the rich. And I don't hear Pete Hoekstra or the Republicans insisting that there be an offset there, because those tax cuts for the rich are going to add billions and billions, tens of billions of dollars to the deficit over the next decade. But at the same time, for people who are unemployed through no fault of their own because of the terrible economy, they're basically holding those benefits hostage. I think that's outrageous, double standard. We should be extending unemployment benefits. We called on Governor-elect Snyder yesterday to speak up and say we need to have these unemployment benefits extended. They affect almost 200,000 unemployed Michigan workers over the next several months. And again, it's a test for him. Does he really care about these unemployed workers? Is he going to stand up and say, yes, extend these benefits? Or is he going to let them expire and let those people suffer?
What's been the response from the governor-elect?
No response yet. But again, I think this is just the first of many tests he's going to have in terms of where his priorities lie.
I think the thing that bothers me the most about the extension of the tax cuts for the upper 2% is the argument that the Republicans repeatedly make that if you tax job creators, the jobs won't be created. I just frankly haven't seen that many jobs, and I think the data bears this out. I haven't seen that many jobs created with the tax cuts in effect for the past 8 years.
No, they haven't been. I mean, you compare the record of Bill Clinton. We had over 22 million jobs created during the Clinton administration, and that wasn't because of tax cuts. And that number dropped precipitously under Bush. I think it was about 2 million jobs created during his entire 8 years while he ballooned the deficit and everything else. No, that's more the trickle-down theory, just make the rich richer. What will actually stimulate the economy more and be more helpful to the economy is extending unemployment benefits. That money gets spent because those people have to spend those benefits to live from day to day. That's a far more efficient way, economically stimulative way to spend money.
Well, the fact of the matter is, though, the Republicans came through with a smashing victory on Election Day. The question now is for the Democrats, how do you rebuild for 2012, and how do you work with the Republicans over the course of the next 2 years?
Well, again, we are willing to work with them without sacrificing our principles. We're not going to throw poor folks or middle-class folks or unemployed workers under the bus, as many of them would do. But I think the Republicans also have a responsibility to work with Democrats. This was not an endorsement of Republican policies. A couple of weeks ago, people were very unhappy with the state of the economy, and Democrats were the party in power, and so we paid the price for that. But if you look at the polling data and the research, Republicans are even less popular than Democrats as a party. So this is an opportunity for them to work with President Obama and the Democrats. But if they don't, and if Rick Snyder doesn't get the economy straightened out here in Michigan, he doesn't balance his budget, without sacrificing education and public safety, they're going to be held accountable in 2 years and 4 years as well.
The chairman of the state Democratic Party, Mark Brewer, our guest. Mr. Brewer, thanks very much, and happy Thanksgiving to you, sir.
Thank you, Rich.
Okay, Mark Brewer, our guest, and we will continue after the break right here on MPS in the Morning. If you've been watching us on TV, so long. We'll see you tomorrow.